Welcome to Change It Up Radio here with Paula Shaw. I am delighted to have you with me today because I have just recently survived a really difficult time in my own life that I'm calling the Rat Seminar. And that's what I want to talk to you about on this show today. So please stay with me because we have a lot to talk about, a lot that was experienced and a lot that was learned through the RAT seminar. So those of you who follow Change It Up Radio know that we are all about change. We are either spotlighting people who are change makers and trying to make the world a better place, or we are bringing you information to help you deal with change in a smoother, more productive way. Change can be a bitch, as we all know. We need it. It makes life interesting. It helps us grow, but it also puts us in a situation of now being immersed in the discomfort of the unfamiliar. And we humans don't like that. We really don't like the discomfort of the unfamiliar. We love the coziness of just kind of knowing what's going on, knowing where our favorite restaurant is, our favorite dry cleaner, our favorite market in the area where we live. And so one of the reasons that moving is so upheaving and disconcerting for people is because suddenly you're in the middle of the unfamiliar. And I have just personally experienced all that I'm talking to you about here. And I'm going to share that story with you very shortly. But just a reminder that if you would like to know more about me or my work as an author, a speaker, and a life transitions coach, you can get that information at paulashaw.com. Also at paulashaw.com, I have a free gift for you that I think is an invaluable gift. We all have difficulty with those conversations with somebody who's either going through a tough time themselves, or we have to talk to them about something that's uncomfortable, those kinds of things. And I have for you a complimentary list of 20 things to say, and even more importantly, not to say to people who are going through difficult emotional times. And unfortunately, what most of us do when others are going through difficult times and we feel inept or ill prepared to handle that kind of a conversation well, we tend to avoid the conversation. We tend to not make the call or not stop by and visit. And very often that leaves this sad or grieving person feeling very alone. And then we're really doing them a disservice because we're not being there for them in their hour of need. So definitely go to paulashaw.com and grab that free gift. You can just download it instantly. So if you've got a tough conversation coming up, your cheat sheet will be there for you right away. So that's at paulashaw.com. Also at changeitupradio.com, you can hear former shows. You can also find out about being a guest or a sponsor of this show. And we would love to know who you are and what your business is about if you are interested in becoming a sponsor of this show. We've got an amazing program that I call Paula's Preferred Professionals. It'll be starting the first of the year. And there are many perks for the preferred professionals who make this group. First of all, they have to be people who have been vetted by me. They have to be services that I have used, people that I know, so that I can speak about you in an honest way from my own experience on the show each week. Your business information will also be on a special page on our website. We will also be offering a complimentary interview to those people who are on Paula's preferred professionals list. So there will be lots of cool things about that and more information on that coming up. But if you'd like to find out more, if you're a business who would like to have your business advertised on the radio every week, we even offer the opportunity to have professionally created commercials created for you for a fraction of what it would cost you to rent a studio, hire copywriters, and do all of that kind of thing for yourself. So please go to changeitupradio.com, get information about that, and get in touch with me if you would like to be considered for Paula's preferred professionals. All right, I am calling the show today The Rat Seminar. And I know that's rather a strange title, but there's good reason for why I'm calling the show The Rat Seminar. And what I want to share with you is that in the last 6 weeks to almost to 2 months, I have been a member of the Rat Seminar. I have been going through some very, very difficult moments in the Rat Seminar. What can I say? So let me tell you a little bit about what does the Rat Seminar include? What does it mean? But before I do that, I want to read you a little bit from one of my favorite books that it gives us interesting information about animals. And actually, it includes everything, insects, birds, but it gives us a little insight as to the spiritual meaning of different animals. So obviously, as I've been sharing with you, rats have been part of my life experience recently. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about rats. So first of all, some of you may know that people born in the year of the rat, which is in the Chinese, I can't remember what they call it, but you know, there's a different animal for each month of the year, according to this Chinese tradition. So people born in the year of the rat, which by the way, I was not, I was born in the year of the tiger, are said to be success oriented, sometimes restless and nervous, but always very shrewd. The rat has succeeded in proliferating in spite of the efforts of humanity. This drive for success may be what the rat has come to speak of with you. Are you driving too hard? Are you not pushing hard enough? Do you need to be more aggressive in pursuing your goals? Rats are highly social and often cooperate in survival efforts. They store food, reflecting an interesting economy. They are the most adaptable of animals with an ability to survive in most environments. If a rat has shown up as a totem, or basically saying if a rat has shown up in your life, you may find yourself getting more restless. It may indicate a time to be more shrewd in all of your dealings. Are you not handling the pests in your life properly? Do you need to become more adaptable? It may even reflect a time to more aggressively pursue endeavors for success. The behavior of the rat, when you see it, will help you determine the kind of energy it specifically brings to you. Well, I can tell you the behavior of the rats that showed up in my life. And The word that comes to me is tenacious. They were determined. They were going to achieve their goal, which was coming into my home and eating my food, leaving their droppings, leaving, what they leave behind uh, in my home. So I would say tenacious. They were not going to be easily turned away. And a perseverant, determined rat, believe me, can make your life a living hell. I'm on the other side of this experience now, and even so, getting prepared to do the show today took me longer. Just coordinating my thoughts was more difficult. I mean, in the midst of this whole thing, I really couldn't get a total night's sleep. I couldn't think straight. I couldn't plan. I couldn't focus. I was completely obsessed and overtaken, you might say, by the energy, the tenacity of these rats to invade my life experience. And so I'm going to tell you more about this experience because it was filled with learning opportunities for me and the people around me. So after we take this break, we'll come back and we will return to lessons from the rat seminar. All righty, we'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio. And we are talking today about lessons from the rat seminar. I am handling the show all by myself today because I am the one. I was the major attendee of the rat seminar. And so there's really no guest to run this all by today. It happened to me. So, we talk every week on this show about change and the upheaval of change, and that change is going to come whether we like it or not. And oftentimes we don't like it because we don't like the unfamiliar. We don't like everything being mixed up or chaotic or not in a proper order that we're used to. And certainly I was right in line with that sort of feeling and that sort of thinking, just like most of us are. And then what happened to me is what often happens when change is about to come. And that was that a sudden, unexpected experience happened. And usually that experience is accompanied by upheaval, by emotional distress, by shock, by it could be intense emotionality. Many times this happens when there's a death, or perhaps a job loss, or a negative health diagnosis. These kinds of huge upheaving things, a breakup, something that breaks the pattern of the way life has been rolling, how it's been flowing in a way that you may be used to and that you may really like. This upheaval comes in many forms. For me, it came in the form of droppings, rat droppings. In fact, some of you were with me on the day it happened because several weeks back I did a show by myself and we were talking about grief. And just as I was sitting down to begin the show, I glanced at the floor by my favorite chair and I saw what looked like rat droppings. I got to tell you, I I can't even exactly describe to you what it's like when you're sitting just about to start your radio show and there at the base of your favorite chair are rat droppings. This feeling of freezing up came into my stomach. This, like, it was almost like hearing a sound in my brain going, not, I wasn't trying to imitate a rat, but I mean, it was like I heard this sound that was just like chaos, commotion in my brain. And for a minute, I really felt that I wasn't going to be able to continue my show or even begin my show. I was terrified of what I was seeing in front of me and what that meant. That's often what happens when we have that moment of upheaval, whether it's a diagnosis from the doctor or news that someone has died or there's been a terrible accident, whatever it is, suddenly our world turns upside down and we go into almost a completely emotional state. And that state doesn't allow you to do a lot of logical thinking because what actually happens when something shocking like that occurs, the frontal cortex, which is the thinking part of your brain, that actually turns off because the blood is being shunted to the amygdala, which is the part of your brain that prepares you for fight, flight, or freeze. And when that amygdala needs to receive the blood so that your body can get into action to save you, basically, that's it. The amygdala is like a little search beam that is constantly going, am I safe? Am I safe? Am I safe? And when it does not think you're safe, it puts you in action so that you can either flee, fight, or freeze. So, oftentimes, when something shocking happens in our lives, we immediately, that amygdala kicks in, and all we can do is feel the emotion of what we're feeling, or we're either frozen or paralyzed in our fear, or we want to get the hell out of there, or we're going to fight. We're going to fight. And so, in that moment that I saw the rat droppings, there was horror, there was anger, there was, so many emotions I can't even tell you. I really, truly don't know how I did that show. I should go back and watch it just to see if knowing what I know, if I can tell that I was in a difficult state. I do remember that it was difficult for me to begin the show because it was hard to get my thoughts together. But so oftentimes that next step is filled with emotion. It's filled with dread of what the news we just got means and what will happen in the future. It's all about emotions and anxiety and all of those fearful negative thoughts because this news is usually something new to us. In my case, this sight had never been seen before in my home. And a million thoughts were racing through my head. And sometimes what happens is we're temporarily paralyzed. We can't do anything. In this case, was not paralyzed. I was able to do my show, but it was very difficult. I somehow managed to alter my frame of mind and get myself into a state where I was no longer seeing the droppings so that I could focus on what I needed to do in front of me. So, what often happens after that is in our helpless state, in our state of um, emotion and need and all of the things that are going on for us, we reach out for help because that's what we need, right? We need assistance. We need help in dealing with this reality because it's either bigger than anything we've ever confronted before, or it's crippling us. It's enabling, or it's not enabling, it's disabling us to be able to go forward and to cope. And sometimes I want to warn you, in this vulnerable state, you can sometimes reach out to the wrong people, or you can read people incorrectly. I reached out, of course, immediately to my landlord with pictures and with text saying how terrified I was, how horrified I was, and not knowing what to do. I suggested that I should probably call an exterminator right away. And my landlord responded that he would rather come and assess the situation. So I want to warn everybody up front. No matter whether a death has occurred, a job loss, whatever happens to you, when you're in a vulnerable state, be careful about the decisions you make. Be sure that other people who are calmer and more logically thinking are aware of what you're going through and listen to their suggestions. Because my brain did not want to accept the fact that there might be more than one rat. My brain wanted to think, oh, this is an isolated incident, and it, he'll fix it, right? It'll be an easy fix and life will go on and everything will be fine. Well, that is not what ended up happening. And because my brain didn't want to accept the possible reality that this could be a rat infestation. And in fact, I do remember in that moment, that thought didn't even cross my mind. I could only think that somehow a rat had gotten into my home. And by the way, you don't need more than one to be pretty horrified. You don't need more than one rat to turn your life upside down. But when you hear the words infestation, when you hear rat infestation from a professional, that's when the horror really sinks in. But in the beginning, I didn't want to see that. In the beginning, that was not the reality that I was signing up for. So when my landlord came and found a suspicious looking hole and plugged it up with what seemed to be foolproof methods, I went to sleep that night thinking, ha, thank goodness it's over. Thank goodness it was just an isolated incident, and tomorrow life will return to normal. Well, not so fast. Not so fast. We're going to take a little break right now. And when we come back, I will continue my story of lessons from the rat seminar and what ended up happening, so that hopefully I can make you more aware and able to handle something like this should it ever happen in your life. All right, we will be right back. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. We are talking about lessons from the rat seminar today. And if you're just, you'll need to go back and hear the beginning of this show when you get a chance, because you'll want to know what the rat seminar is actually all about and how I ended up being the only participant in a recent rat seminar. And may I suggest to any of you that you not join a rat seminar if you don't have to. And if you listen to some of what I'm suggesting right here, then you will never have to be in a rat seminar. So, where we left off in the last segment, I was explaining that my landlord came over trying to handle this situation on his own. Now, he does many things well, and he is a handyman by trade, but he is not a rat, or I should say, a rodent control professional, a vector control professional, as they call them. He has no training in how you remove, how you inspect, ferret out, clean up the situation, seal everything, sanitize everything, all the things that a professional vector control company does. This landlord had no experience and no licensing to do this kind of work. But because I was in a very emotional state, my linear thinking was not real clear. And because I'm a nice person, I wanted to believe that it was going to be okay. I wanted to believe that he knew what he was doing. But what I ended up doing instead was setting myself up for 2 weeks. And I mean 2 solid weeks of hell, where every morning I would get up and a new horror story was waiting for me. I had some mornings I woke up and things had been scattered off the counters in my kitchen, and fruit in my fruit bowl had been eaten into. Droppings were everywhere. I mean, it was a full on horror story. And I naively thought my room, my bedroom, was a safety zone. And so the first 5 or 6 days after my landlord had done the work that he said should make sure no rats would get into the house anymore, the first 5 or 6 days, I didn't even bar the or barricade myself into the room. Like there's a gap, maybe an inch big, between the bottom of your door and the floor. And any, most rats can get under that. That didn't cross my mind. I thought if the door was closed, they'd respect the door. Yeah, don't ever fall for that one. So what ended up happening, to kind of cut to the chase here, is that each day it became worse, because my original fantasy that it was one rat very quickly was proven wrong. And then I thought, well, maybe it's a couple, or maybe there are a couple different places that they're finding to get in. Well, what ended up happening is exactly what I alluded to in the last segment. This was a full-on rat infestation. And the word tenacity, the tenaciousness of these rats was mind-boggling, truly. One night, I looked at the vent covering my heating, and your heating and your ventilation systems plug into your house through these pipes, or I think they call them ducts. And then there's a cover over that, a vent cover. One night I went to sleep, that cover looked perfectly normal, the wall looked perfectly normal. The next morning I found that rats had gnawed into an avocado that I had in the fruit bowl, and there was droppings and papers scattered again off my counter. And then I was starting to get a little crazy, because it was like, how are they getting in? My landlord had been coming every day, checking holes, plugging things, doing things. Nothing seemed to be working. And I went and looked at that vent area again. A rat had gnawed right through the wallboard, and there was an opening like an inch big that obviously the rat had come through, or rats in plural. So yeah, we were into like a full on nightmare scenario now. And so, what I also realize is, man, there comes a point, guys, when you just have to say, no, that's not acceptable what you're doing. I don't care how good my landlord's intentions were. They were not acceptable behaviors in a situation like this. I have now learned, too late for this incident, but I have now learned I should have been put in a hotel in a safe place at the landlord's expense, and professional people should have been brought in to find all of the points of entry, seal, sanitize, and do everything that needed to be done to actually make me safe. But instead, I tolerated the intolerable. And what I tolerated was my landlord coming every day, trying different methods, trying traps, showing up with his BB gun to shoot rats in the ventilation pipes in my house, leaving traps in my cupboards where I was horrified every day to open them and maybe see a dead rat. There is no way I should ever have had to endure this. And knowing now what I know, I never would have if I'd known that then, but I didn't. So I did not ask to be put in a hotel. My landlord would show up and he would try to do things, and then he would leave and go to his safe, clean home, and he would sleep there while I was horrified and terrified through the night. Canker sores breaking out everywhere in my mouth, my back going out, just so many signs of stress. And really, in retrospect, I am partly at blame here because I tolerated it. And that's what I want to really stress to all of you. When you are in intolerable situations, when circumstances become intolerable, do not tolerate them. Do not be a good guy. Fight for yourself. Fight for your inner child. Fight for your inner adolescent who may be horrified. Fight. Stand up and say, no, no, this is not okay. It's not okay for you to show up with your night vision goggles and your BB gun and then leave me here alone with the rats after you've gone home to your safe place to sleep. That is not okay. And I should have said it, and I should have said it just like that. But in the moment, I really, truly didn't realize it. But it started getting more and more horrifying. And as I told you, at night, I would close my bedroom door. I finally started putting books at the base of the door to close that gap and to barricade myself into the room. And I would wake up in the morning, and when I had the courage to open the door, and by the way, one morning I texted my landlord and said, I heard such strange sounds last night. I am not coming out of my room until you are here. And that's how awful it was. That's what I was tolerating. And still, I wasn't saying no more. I kept thinking the next thing he did, or the next thing, or whatever was going to fix it. But again, remember, people are licensed to do certain kinds of work because they have expertise in that work. Don't let somebody do work for you who is not licensed to do work in that field. You would not go to your plumber for therapy. You would not go to a carpenter with a medical condition. And yet, that's pretty much what was happening to me. I had somebody who had no idea how to successfully really do vector control, and I put my life in his hands. And so There is work I need to do, that to obviously work to overcome the trauma that I lived through. And remember, the other thing I want to stress to you is oftentimes we think that when we're going through grief or we're going through stressful situations, that we should be able to handle it. That, this is kind of a normal thing in life. Grief is a normal part of life. But that just because it happens to so many people does not mean that we can handle it without help. One of the most important things I did during this whole thing going on was I reached out to others. I reached out to friends who helped me to get clarity and to pack. I reached out to Facebook. I have never done anything like this before, but I told my story on Facebook. And that actually is what led to a solution for me. Someone posted a property that her partner had available that turned out to be the home I now live in. So don't hesitate to reach out. Don't hesitate to say, I need help, because sometimes it takes a community to solve these terrible experiences that we can get into. So when we come back from this break, I want to tell you the resolution of the RAT seminar. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio, here with Paula Shaw. And we are talking today about lessons from the RAT seminar, a seminar which I did not create, but which I lived through and which I attended alone. Well, not totally alone, because in our last segment, I was just saying that when life deals you difficult situations, when the upheaval of change comes, don't be afraid to reach out to others. We need to reach out on many levels. We need to reach out maybe to get professional help with our emotional situation. We need to reach out to maybe get solutions to the problem. And oftentimes we need to reach out to get perspective, because other people may be seeing the situation much more clearly than we are when we're in the midst of emotion. I realize in retrospect that in the moment, the first moment I saw the droppings, the rat droppings at the base of my chair, I became a griever. You all know I have expertise in grieving, and I wrote a book called Grief, When Will This Pain Ever End? And in that moment, I became a griever because I suffered a loss of the safety and the sanctity of my home. I could no longer believe and feel that my home was a safe place. It had been invaded by rats, and I was dealing with that loss. I didn't see it that way at the time, but I certainly do now. I certainly do realize that when the upheaval of change comes to any of us, even if your seminar is not a rat seminar, maybe it's a job loss seminar, maybe it's a death seminar, maybe it's a breakup seminar, maybe it's a negative health diagnosis seminar. But in the moment that the bad news comes, in the moment that that upheaval takes place, you are immersed in the the fear, the unknown, all of those things that happen, and that can affect us physically, it can affect us mentally, it can affect us spiritually. And when those kinds of things are going on, when your world becomes chaotic, and that's really what happened, you need a steady hand to hold. You need the guidance and the help and the support of others. And I want to say And I'm going to call her out by name because my friend Jean Rodden was amazing. I mean, amazing. Many, many people helped. As I mentioned, I posted my story on Facebook, and people reached out with support. People reached out with ideas of where I could look for a place to live because clarity finally came to me that I had to leave, that this landlord didn't have the expertise to ever make my home a safe place. And so I needed to leave. And Jeannie Rodden showed up day after day after day, helping me pack, calming my nerves. In fact, in the very beginning, when I first reached out to people and said, I've got to move. If you know of anything, please let me know. Several people were discouraging. Several people said, I've been looking for months. There's nothing out there and it's all too expensive, and find a way to stay where you are. Well, there was no way I could do that. I was clear about that. But in the moment that everybody says that to you, it's scary and it can become weighty and you can start to feel discouraged. But Jeannie and I had both been reading a book called Outrageous Openness. And Tasha Silver, who wrote the book, says, in the moment that something upsetting happens, you just declare divine order, which is basically saying, I totally know and believe that the perfect solution to my problem has already been put in place. And all I need to do is believe it and be in alignment with it. And that solution will come to me. And that is not always easy to do. But when you call in divine order, it reminds you that miracles happen. It reminds you that your reality is not the reality of others. So even though others who were trying to be helpful and who were, trying to give me good advice said, there's nothing out there and it's too expensive, I decided not to buy into that belief. In fact, Jeannie and I literally shook it off. We shook our bodies out and shook it all off after I had received that advice. And then I just declared that now I am in alignment with the perfect solution, the perfect home, the perfect miracle showing up for me. My reality is my reality. It is not the reality of anyone else. But I want to say thank you to those people who sent me, Jill Swartz sent me listing after listing. Uh, Ellen McCarty tried to put me in touch with people that could help. Susan Carter sent many listings. Patrick Galvin, another friend, sent listings. Jara Payne sent my requirements, my needs out to many realtors. People stepped up. Robin Chapello let me speak to my Rotary group and tell them my plight and ask for help. And she showed up and did some packing. It was amazing, amazing what people did. My assistant, even though I was paying her, really truly broke her butt doing a lot of incredible work. I don't know how I could have done everything I did without her. My two children, Aaron Shaw, Casey Shaw, unbelievable work. And once I got to the other side, helping me to unpack and create a home. I mean, those of you who have moved, and it's pretty much all of us, right? We know the upheaval and the difficulty and the pain of the move. But what I've also realized is it's a cleanse, it's a new beginning, it's a shaking off of the old energy and the old dust. And it can be an amazingly wonderful experience in your life. And as we're speaking today, I am still sitting in the midst of the boxes and all that still needs to be put together. But I have also realized that when the upheaval of change comes, after we've allowed ourselves the emotional experience, and you can't just push it aside, you need to experience it and express it, then reach out. Reach out for help, reach out for support, reach out for solutions. I'm still reaching out for solutions because I'm still having issues with that landlord. But help is out there. Great people are out there. Assistance is coming to me. And I tell you, that was a lesson for me because, I was a child who was told to go to my room when I was angry or upset or whatever. And I still send myself to my room on some level. To post my story on Facebook is something I would never have done or thought of doing myself. But at the urging of my friend Jeannie and other people who thought it would help and be a good idea, and following the example of my daughter, who has many times posted issues that she was having and gotten help, I learned a powerful lesson. Facebook is an amazing resource, an amazing resource. So my miracle came, the house came. I'm now in a place that's bigger and brighter and more wonderful than I was in. I have a yard and a garden and all those things that I love and need. And should we have to face another shutdown at some point, I will be somewhere that I'm safe, where I can sleep, where I can grow, where I can grow things in my yard. It's so much better. But three things were still necessary before I could come to peace. Well, peace being the third thing. Forgiveness. I had to forgive myself for not taking better care of myself initially, and forgive my landlord for not doing the right thing. And then I had to reach a place of acceptance, accepting that it all happened for a reason, accepting that life is in divine order, if we allow that, and accepting that it was time for change, whether I wanted it or not, whether I thought I was ready for it or not. It was time for change. And so change came. And I'm happy to say, quite honestly, I was dragged to it kicking and screaming. But now I've reached a place of acceptance and peace and gratitude. That's the other piece that falls into place if you take all those steps. Gratitude. Now I'm grateful for my new home. I'm grateful for my children and their many, many hours of help. I'm grateful for a friend like Jeannie Rodden. I'm grateful that my assistant Vanessa has shown up day after day after day to keep helping. I'm grateful. I'm grateful for my parents who were so supportive throughout this whole thing and who gave me shelter initially. And it was a great opportunity for us also to give to each other. So I want to thank my listeners for spending time allowing me to reflect on lessons from the RAT seminar. And by the way, I also want to thank JJ Joshua, my spiritual coach, who was there encouraging me every step of the way. So thank you all for being with us here on Change It Up Radio. And let me remind you that you can hear us at 9 o'clock on Sunday evenings on AM 1170 and 96.1 FM here in San Diego. We're also on every major podcast platform, so you'll have no trouble finding us. You can just ask Siri or Alexa, or just go to your favorite podcast platform, which, by the way, I'm hoping is now Podopolo, the newest platform that allows gaming and awards and all sorts of fun things as you interact with your favorite podcasts. So until next week, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being here so that I could review and once again learn even more from lessons from the RAT seminar. You all take good care. Stay safe. We'll see you next week. Bye bye.